As everyone knows, the NBA Finals ended on Friday. The Cleveland Cavaliers lost to the Golden State Warriors in 4 games. It was a true sweep, not a gentleman's sweep like last year's series. And of course, the Monday after the finals in the sports world, the biggest talk is involving LeBron James. A lot of talk surrounding his legacy. Obviously, there's been the huge debate recently, Michael Jordan versus LeBron James, that seems to be completely put on hold after LeBron James's NBA Finals performance. He had the broken hand, etc. We'll get into that in a few seconds. I just want to talk about my main takeaways. A lot coming from Game 4. The first, we got to talk about his hand. LeBron said in the press conference it was pretty much broken. It wasn't broken. It was a hand contusion. I have no doubt that his hand was hurt, but it was a self-inflicted injury. It happened after Game 1. It happened after JR Smith made his big mistake after the game. I guess LeBron James punched a blackboard or a whiteboard and hurt his hand pretty badly. No one knew of it until after the game. I find it a little bit interesting that it was released, the report was released by Brian Windhorst after the game, right after the game. And I don't know if LeBron purposely released that information to make it as an excuse. Nick Wright said this morning that LeBron never wanted that information to be released, and I sort of get that. If you're an NBA player, if you're a legend, and you get injured by punching a whiteboard, that's not something you sort of want out there. So I don't know who released that information or why it was done, but it looks like it was an excuse. And the part of LeBron James is not whether it was released or not, whether he leaked it, but why did he show up with the cast on at the press conference? That sort of makes it seem like you want it to be an excuse, but players have played with way worse injuries. It's a hand. It was a little bit swollen. Yeah, it affects your game a little bit, but it was self-inflicted. If you're a great player and you're in the conversation with Michael Jordan, with Kobe Bryant, with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, all those great players, you can't let a little hand injury impact your play in the finals. It's not an excuse. I don't think people should really be talking about it, but it's just a little weird. Like, why did he have to put on the cast? It sort of, makes you want to think that he wanted that narrative out there, that he wanted people to talk about it and say, well, maybe, that's why they couldn't win Game 2, Game 3, and Game 4 is LeBron's hand. If he was healthy, who knows what would have happened. But that's sort of ridiculous. If he didn't want that message out there, he could have waited 5 minutes to put on his cast after he left the press conference room. He didn't do that. He, dapped up his family, was doing push-ups for the games. Makes me wonder how hurt could it have been. I think it's just a non-starter. People should not really be talking about it. I get it. I'm talking about it right now, but I feel like I just had to sort of respond to what people were saying. Another issue that I saw was, so right after the JR moment, they're going to the bench. It's going into overtime of Game 1. Obviously, JR Smith screwed up. He didn't know what the score was. LeBron and the team didn't know if they had a timeout to call. Obviously, even if you did know you had a timeout, you might not have wanted to call it because maybe J.R. Smith was about to make a play. No one really understood what he was doing until it was too late. But there was the video released of LeBron James and J.R. Smith going to the bench. J.R. Smith, he sat right next to LeBron, which, isn't something that you would probably be eager to do in that moment after pretty much screwing up Game 1. He had a pretty good look at a layup. It would have been a tough shot, but it would have been a good shot of going in. But you have LeBron James and you have J.R. Smith on the bench. LeBron James doesn't say one word during those 2 minutes on the bench after the play. And if you're the leader of the team, you're the leader of the organization, you're the leader of the entire NBA. You got to be the stronger man, the better man in that situation, and gather the troops. Kyle Korver tried to get a few people together, but no one's going to listen to Kyle Korver. I don't know if he ever hit a shot in the series. He was horrible. So no one's going to listen to Kyle Korver, but you're LeBron James. You have to step up and gather your troops and say, hey, This is game 1. We're in overtime. We just have to be the better team for the next 5 minutes. It doesn't matter what just happened. We just have to be the better team for the next 5 minutes. And LeBron himself just has to be great for 5 minutes. You're the best player on the planet, and you can't show up for 5 minutes. I understand you showed up for 48, but that's over. That's what happened. It's reset. It's 0-0. You have 5 minutes. LeBron James should have taken over those 5 minutes and won that game regardless. And I think that's sort of an issue you're seeing with this new NBA is, and I'll get into this later because I want to discuss this little part, that this new NBA with player mobility has sort of brought on a lack of competitiveness. You see it with LeBron giving up in game 4, using the excuse this is his hand, getting mad at JR Smith, not talking, not leading the troops. And then you also see it with Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's pretty weak. He trolls Twitter looking for what people are saying. He needs the approval, even though he was regarded as one of the best players in the league when he came to Golden State. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, that's on The Athletic. There's an article about what made Durant want to join the Warriors, and a lot of it, what it was, is he was looking for approval from his peers, and he needed that, and he was surprised that the Warriors wanted him on his team. But he was at the time a top 3 player in the league, maybe second. So it's a little ridiculous. I think you're seeing a lack of heart. There's a few guys that have it, but a lot of the top guys in the league don't have it. The biggest heart's Russell Westbrook in the league, but he's sort of fallen off. He isn't winning a lot of games in the playoffs and isn't contending for a championship. So there's a lack of fire that you saw with Kobe, that you saw with MJ, that you saw with a lot of those guys, and now with this new NBA, you're seeing less of it. But going back to what JR and LeBron, but in that moment, if you asked LeBron James before the game and you said you have 5 minutes in game 1, it's tied. You have 5 minutes, you went into overtime, would you take it? Hands down, every single person on that team would run for that option. And you had that option. You're the best player in the world. Take over in those 5 minutes. Another thing, if we move to the entire landscape of the series, there's one little thing. We sort of saw it on First Take. I think Stephen A. Smith is completely right. It's a little ridiculous. LeBron James couldn't get one game. I won't go as hard on it because you could say he got them game 1, but J.R. Smith and the refs sort of screwed him up a little bit, took that one away. But still, you game 2, game 3, game 4, you had opportunities to do it, and you couldn't get one game. Allen Iverson got one game against Shaq and Kobe, which is arguably one of the most dominating dynasties ever in NBA history. So Iverson was able to get that with a worse team, or an equal team, not a great team. Whatever it wasn't a great team. He got at least one game, and he's 6 feet. LeBron James is 6'9", widely regarded as a better player than Allen Iverson by leaps and bounds. But Iverson had that heart. He had that it factor and was able to win a game. So there's also this. There's game 3, and this is what's sort of interesting. This brings in LeBron James versus Kevin Durant. I think there's 2 aspects of Game 3 that are important that sort of pushes me in the wrong direction about this series from LeBron James. And don't get me wrong, LeBron had one of the best playoffs we've ever seen. It was impressive what he did, absolutely incredible. But there's just that it factor that I think is what separates LeBron from the best players of all time in the NBA, that it factor. LeBron's gotten better at it, but still not completely there like we've seen with Kobe, with Jordan, with Iverson, with those guys. One, why wasn't he guarding Kevin Durant? Kevin Durant was the MVP, Finals MVP. He was obviously the guy making it go for the Warriors. When the Warriors needed something, they gave it to Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant delivered, most of the time. He had one bad game, but Kevin Durant delivered for the majority of the time. He was the guy that was making the Warriors go. Curry was injured this season. Durant was the man. Klay Thompson had the high ankle sprain. Wasn't that effective in this finals? Kevin Durant was the man. He was the guy this entire season. You shut down Kevin Durant, you have a chance to beat the Warriors. Definitely, I'm not saying you win the series, but you definitely have a shot to win a few games. Who knows what happens? So why wasn't LeBron James guarding Kevin Durant? It makes sense. They're both forwards. It's not like LeBron isn't athletic enough to guard KD. It's just sort of a want. I think there's an it factor. He didn't want to shut down. His mindset should have been to humiliate Kevin Durant, to make it so difficult for him to score. I mean, in Game 3, it was a pretty equal game. I think it was Kevin Durant versus LeBron James. Curry and Clay were absolutely horrible, so it's not like Durant got any help in Game 3. And obviously, LeBron James did get a lot of help from Kevin Love this series, which has completely been overshadowed. He averaged 22 and 12, so Love came up and played. But regardless, not a lot of help from the Cavs, not a lot of help from the Warriors. It was Durant, it was LeBron in Game 3, and KD had 43. LeBron, they lost. The Warriors sort of ran away with it at the end when Curry hit his first three of the game with, 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But whatever. At that point in that game, you knew that Durant was doing something special, was in the process of doing something special. He was going to be the one that led the Warriors to victory. And if you're LeBron James, why aren't you seeing that and then saying, I'm guarding Kevin Durant? I, myself, is going to take Kevin Durant out of this ball game. We've seen, Michael Jordan would do that. Why isn't LeBron doing that? He didn't attempt. If you do it and you attempt and fail, then you did it. Maybe Durant's just a little bit younger. He's Durant. He's 7 foot tall, can handle like a point guard and can shoot better than almost anyone in NBA history. So you're not always going to win that. But to not even attempt to guard Kevin Durant, I don't understand. You take out Kevin Durant and you say, I'm taking out Kevin Durant in this game. I'm going to score on offense and I'm taking out Kevin Durant on defense. You guys worry about the rest. If I do that, that's it. My job is done. I did everything I possibly could. But he didn't do that. I don't understand that. He also was poor defensively throughout the entire season. There's the one play with Curry just runs to the corner. LeBron's just sort of watching, doesn't contest. It's Steph Curry. You have to be within inches of him at all times. And I think that sort of permeated through the entire team. Is the Cavs have been a really good defensive team the past few years. They lost Kyrie Irving, but Kyrie Irving isn't a great defender, so that it's not like a reason for them becoming a great defensive team to one of the worst in the league. The big difference that you see is LeBron James' effort on defense this season was lacking. And I think there was just a lack of emphasis on defense, and the rest of the team saw that LeBron wasn't giving it 110%, so they're not going to. If LeBron goes in there and sets that standard, then you're not going to be messing around on defense if LeBron's busting his ass everywhere. You saw it with the Rockets this year with Chris Paul. Chris Paul is tough. He's tough on defense. If you go to a game and you watch Chris Paul play, he's jamming whoever he's guarding. He's roughing him up, playing him tight, never giving up. He might make it on a few Steph Curry mixtapes, but he's guarding Steph Curry very well. You saw it. The Rockets were up 3-2. And a big reason for Curry struggling was, one, the Rockets' game plan of going at him, but also Chris Paul. And there's no mistake that Chris Paul brought a defensive demeanor to this Rockets team, and that year he comes, they get way better defensively. The year LeBron James starts resting on defense, the entire team gets worse defensively. So, LeBron had an all-time great postseason. He had one of the best NBA final games ever in Game 1, but still, from overtime, starting in the overtime of Game 1 to the rest of the series, you have to be pretty disappointed in LeBron James. He didn't gather his troops to get them ready to fight in overtime, because if you ask them, you have 5 minutes to beat the Warriors in Game 1, to steal Game 1 on the road. Everyone in the Cavs front office, everyone on the Cavs team would take that. He didn't do that. He wore a cast after Game 4. I'm not entirely sure what to make of it, but he certainly could have waited 5 minutes after the press conference to put on the cast, and if he didn't want it to be an excuse, then wait those 5 minutes. Because you knew what was going to happen. As soon as you show up in that cast, whether you leaked it or not, you knew that the narrative was going to be, and people were going to try and give you excuses. You said you didn't want excuses, so don't wear that. to the press conference, right? He didn't get one game. He's been swept twice in the NBA Finals. The first time, I think he was 22 years old. Whatever. He's 22 years old. He's playing the Spurs. This time, LeBron's been in 8 finals before this, and you get swept. I think that's a pretty big black mark on your legacy. That is not good for LeBron James. Again, defense. Defense wins championship. Didn't want to guard Kevin Durant for whatever reason. I'm not sure. And I wish someone in the media asked him those questions. No one's asking these questions of why didn't you guard Kevin Durant? He's the best player on the Warriors. You're the best player in the league. You play the same position. Why aren't you guarding him? Every single possession. Why aren't you guarding him? No one asked that. So, I don't know. It's sort of weird. It's a little disappointing from overtime on with LeBron James. He put up great stats, and I think people who like LeBron and are very pro-LeBron are going to look at those stats, but you got to have heart to win championships. What separates the best players ever from being great is heart. That's what you had in Kobe. That's what you have in Michael and Tom Brady. They never give up, 28-3. And Tiger Woods, in those guys. Peyton Manning, neck surgery, came back. And LeBron has a lot of heart. What he did this season showed a lot of toughness, but when it mattered most, he didn't exhibit extreme, elite toughness, greatest of all time toughness. And I think it went throughout the team. It permeated the team and made them worse. It's why they got swept instead of winning Game 5 or Game 6. And they're also close games. Game 1 you had a good shot, and same with Game 3. And I think Game 2, I think Game 1, 2, and 3 were all close in the second half at points. So if you're really that great, then you should be able to take over 5 to 10 minute stretches and be absolutely dominant. He didn't do that. So with the loss in the NBA Finals, that means the NBA free agency is right around the corner. Probably the most exciting part of the NBA these days, since Kevin Durant went to the Warriors, is what's going to happen in free agency. There's marquee guys. Kevin Durant will opt out, will become a free agent, said he will sign with the Warriors. I mean, why the hell would he not sign with the Warriors? I think Durant will probably stay. If they win 2 more championships, then I could see Durant leaving. There's not much to gain, but if another super team is created with LeBron James and Durant is able to beat them with the Warriors, he has a lot to gain. If nothing changes and there's not another super team to contend, Boston doesn't take that next step, or Philly or Houston or whoever LeBron joins, and they win a third, then I think it would make sense for Durant to move somewhere else and try and win that one ring by himself with his team. There's also Paul George and Chris Paul. LA is mentioned with those two. Same with LeBron, Houston, whatever. Before we get to those guys, I just want to quickly, say where I think they're going to go and what their best fit would be. I'm going to have an article coming out later this week where I detail the top, 6 or 7 free agents, including Clint Capella, DeAndre Jordan as well, where they should go, and where I think they'll go. Because I think there's one player, Paul George, who I think best, what makes sense for him, which I'm going to get to it right now. I think this is a slight bit of a hot take. I haven't really seen this. I think Paul George should really go to the Houston Rockets. Because I think the difference between Paul George and LeBron going is I think Paul George definitely fits better. Obviously, LeBron's the much better player, but Paul George would fit in seamlessly with the Rockets. They're going to lose Trevor Ariza, so there's already a spot opening for a forward. George obviously is the better scorer, three-point shooter, and defender than Ariza. So if you're the Rockets and you get Paul George, he would fit in perfectly because he can be an elite spot-up shooter. So Paul and Harden can still dominate the ball and distribute, and you just plug Paul George into the corner and shoot threes if he has to when they're all on the court. Obviously, if they're out, Paul George can take over for stretches, just like Paul can alone, just like Harden can. So offensively, much easier to fit him in. He's a much better shooter than LeBron James is. if LeBron comes in, then, you sort of have to change the entire team, the structure, everything's going to be LeBron first. He's going to be the dominant force on the team. If it's Paul George, he can just sort of fit in. Defensively, the Rockets struggled to stop Kevin Durant. They did an incredible job in every other aspect. They really shut down Curry. I'm not sure why the Cavs didn't use a similar game plan like that. Why didn't they go after Curry? You saw this. Another knock on LeBron is like Curry switched on him so many times. Anytime Steph Curry switches onto you, LeBron James, you should go after him for two reasons. One, you're probably the best scorer in the league when you want to be. And Steph Curry is 6'3", not a great defender. So take advantage of that. Two, we saw when Curry is put on the spot defensively a lot, like Harden did to Curry in the Houston Rockets series, his offense suffers. His offense completely suffers. So, you're killing two birds with one stone there. Not only is it easier for you to score there, but you're going to hurt Curry on offense the other end. So why didn't LeBron do that? But going back, so, the Rockets did a great job on Curry. Durant was the man who won them that series. He just, no one could stop him. You get Paul George. You're not going to stop Kevin Durant, but you can do a lot better job because you can sort of put Paul George on an island out there, and he's going to do as good of a job as about anyone else in the NBA on Kevin Durant. So, not only are you getting another superstar to your team who can fit in seamlessly, you're getting another knockdown three-point shooter on offense that will fit in with Chris Paul and James Harden, but you get better defensively. You get a better matchup with Kevin Durant. So I think that would make way more sense for Paul George, but I think he's going to go to LA. CJ McCollum sort of hinted that he's pretty much made up his mind that he's going to go to LA, especially if LeBron is going there. And it seems like LeBron James is going to go there. For his kids, for his brand. I sort of like it for the fact that, you're not going to a team that's already entirely established. Like if you go to the Rockets, I think there's a little bit more question marks of, the titles will mean a lot, but they won't mean as much. Like if you go to LA or if you win in Cleveland, like LA's been bad for the past 6 years. So if you go there and you win, it's a pretty big deal. It's a huge deal. And it will be something that sort of he created, especially, you get by the Warriors, you get by the Rockets that are already there. It's something that he created. Best thing for his brand, best thing for his kids. I think that's the best decision. Obviously, that hinges on Paul George going there and probably maybe another star. So I think the only way that LeBron doesn't go there is if Paul George opts out. Maybe he goes to Houston. So that's one thing there. So I think Paul George, just quick summary, Paul George should go to the Rockets. I think he'll go to LA. I think LeBron James will go to the Lakers, but that is contingent on Paul George going to the Lakers. Another interesting thing is Chris Paul. Rumors are that he could decide to team up with LeBron James and Paul George in LA. That would sort of destroy the Rockets. It'd be a tough pill to swallow if you're a Rockets fan to see that happen. But I think that's all for today. A little bit discussing. We discussed a little bit LeBron James in the NBA Finals, and then just a hint of what's to come in NBA free agency. There will be an article coming out later this week on the JR Report and or Relevnt, where I think those marquee free agents will go. Be a little bit more in depth, and I'll have a little bit more players. We talked about these four: Durant, LeBron, Paul George, and Chris Paul. There will also be DeMarcus Cousins, Clint Capella, and DeAndre Jordan on the list as well. So pay attention to that and check it out when you get the chance and once it comes out. Thank you so much for listening.